Hey y'all, today we are making a ton of soup for the freezer. Okay, so anytime I do a big meal prep like this, I try to get all the stuff that I can prepared ahead of time to make my life a little bit easier. And I didn't do that in the beginning of my meal prepping days, but I do it now because trust me, it's gonna make your life a lot easier. So anything that I have that's like a fresh vegetable, or if I have like meat that I'm going to use in a bunch of different recipes, I go ahead and try to get that prepped ahead of time, again, to make my life easier. So I am cutting up some carrots, some celery, potatoes, and onions. Now I've got 3 onions laying there, but I'm going to cut up a lot more onion than that. It takes a lot to do these videos, these recipes, so I hope that y'all are enjoying these. And if you want to see what goes on kind of behind the scenes and, you know, how I prepare for one of these videos, I will link my other channel down in the description box for y'all if y'all want to go check that out and see a little bit of the behind the scenes. So anyway, I ended up, like I said, I diced up and chopped up everything that I could. I got my carrots, my celery, and all that. So now I'm going to use a lot of canned vegetables in this video. Don't freak out. We'll talk about it. But so since I'm using these carrots and these green beans, I don't like a huge bite of a vegetable in a soup like that. So to make them kind of go further, and so I can get a bite of these in every bite of soup, I chop them up to be a little bit smaller. And that way I don't eat a whole green bean on one bite of soup, but just a little piece of a green bean. So hopefully that makes sense. You don't have to do this. This is just my preference, you know, so that's what I do. And as far as the onions, I'm going to use onion in almost every recipe that I'm doing. So I wanted to make sure I had enough onion diced up. I ended up dicing up probably close to a 3-pound bag. I can't remember if I used all of the onions in the bag, but I ended up dicing up about 3 pounds of onion. And I'm going to also need sliced onion because we're going to be making French onion soup. French onion soup is one of my favorite soups, y'all, but it's not something I tackle at home a lot because it's kind of time consuming. So I thought it's perfect to go ahead. I'm going to be in the kitchen all day anyway, babying all the other soups that I'm making. I'm going to do French onion, so I will have some in the freezer and have it whenever I want to. So I took a 3-pound bag of sweet onions and I'm just slicing those up, and I'm just going to put those in the Ziploc bag and set them over to the side till I'm ready for them. Okay, first up, potato soup. Don't freak out when you see this package, okay? Don't leave. Stick with me. Stick with me. Okay, so I do have homemade potato soup videos. I will link those down below for y'all if you prefer to do everything homemade, okay? Because I'm cooking so many soups today, I thought I'm going to go with this package of soup, which I've had this before and it's delicious. I love it. But I thought, let me go with this. I'll make it up. I'll put it in the freezer. We'll see how it goes. It is delicious, y'all, okay? So you're going to bring 8 cups of water to a boil, and then you're going to whisk in the contents of your soup package. Now, it has to be the Bear Creek. I can't vouch for any other instant soup or soup mix, okay? But we are going to add a little bit to this because I can't just eat it like this. I have to add a little more to it. It does come with some like dehydrated potato flakes in there. Not like mashed potatoes, but actual potato flakes. So you get a little bite of potato. But I'm going to add in a can of these diced potatoes. I drain them and add those in there. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt and pepper because I just felt like it needed it. But as far as the other seasonings that are in this soup, they are spot on. You don't need to do anything else to them. But try, if y'all haven't had this, try it out. It's delicious, okay? You're just going to bring it to a boil and then let it simmer. Cut it down a little bit, let it simmer for about 10 or 15 minutes. That's it. This soup is done. Easiest potato soup you'll ever make. And next to homemade, this is definitely a close contender because it is really, really good. And if you want it to be loaded potato soup, add you some bacon, add you some green onions, add you some cheese. Do however you want to. It's good. All right, next up, we're doing vegetable beef soup. So I've never made this on the channel before, so I will type this out in the description box for y'all. But any of the soups I've made on the channel before. I'm just going to link the original video because I've already typed those recipes out in the original video description box, and YouTube doesn't give me a lot of room to type. So to ensure that you get the written recipe, I will link all the originals that I can for y'all, okay? So to this pot, I added 1 family pack of beef stew meat and 2 boxes of chicken broth. So 8 cups, not chicken, beef, 8 cups of beef broth. Now I'm adding in 2 cans of those diced potatoes. I drain all my vegetables first. 1 can of corn, 1 can of black-eyed peas. I'm also going to add in those carrots and green beans that I chopped up a little bit earlier. This is what I had those for. And then I'm going to add in 1 can of petite diced tomatoes and 1 can, like the 15-ounce can of tomato sauce. This is what I add to mine. Do I use real potatoes and real carrots sometimes? Yes, but today I'm making a lot of soup, so I went ahead and went for the can. You know, I've said before, maybe I said it earlier, I don't remember. I don't like the texture or the taste of frozen vegetables, so I try not to use them if I can avoid it. And this is just my preference. If you want to use fresh vegetables, you absolutely can. Like I said, I do that sometimes. But on a day like today, when I'm making a massive amount of stuff, and hey, if you're somebody who has trouble, chopping up stuff, if you've got bad arthritis or something, look, this is an option, okay? If you're worried about the sodium, rinse the vegetables off. It'll be fine. It's still going to taste delicious, I promise you. So now and you can also swap out the vegetables. If you don't like the vegetables I put in there, use whatever vegetables you like. So for the seasonings, I added some garlic powder, some onion powder. I'm adding in some paprika, and I'm going to add in some parsley. You add whatever you like. You can season it however you want to. Sometimes I add Tony's when I make my soup. I didn't grab it today, so I'm just using whatever. It's going to be fabulous, whatever you use. Then I add a good bit of pepper in there, and I'm going to add a little bit of salt. I always try to err on the low side with the salt just because I don't want it to be overly salty. You know, you can't take it back out. So as it's, getting cooked, not right now where it's got raw meat in it, but as it's cooking, I'll taste it along the way and add more if I need to. But I just mix this up good. Then I bring it to a boil and I put the lid on it and I cut it down to a simmer and I let it simmer on the stove for about 3 or 4 hours. The longer you cook it, the better it is. Sometimes I just let it cook on low all day long. So however you want to do it is fine. You can also put this in your crock pot if you choose to do that and make you a big pan of cornbread, and this is delicious. This 1 pot of soup actually made me 11 containers of soup to put in the freezer, and these are 2-cup containers, so that's how much soup this made. This always makes a huge amount, and I don't know how to make a small amount of soup, so making it and freezing it is perfect for me. So it's delicious, y'all. You got to try this, okay? Okay, next up, we're going to do cheeseburger soup. Now, this one is one of my son's favorites. He's not a big soup eater, so when I can find one of these that he likes, it's a winner. But everybody likes it. So I have this pack of ground beef that's 2 1/4 pounds. So I'm going to go ahead. I have 2 recipes that need ground beef, so I'm going to go ahead and just cook it up. I'm not going to season the meat because I'm using it in 2 completely different kinds of recipes, and I'll just, add it. The seasonings will be added to the soup. So brown this up and then drain it, okay? And then somebody, I'm not naming names, forgot to turn the camera on. And so what I added in here was the 4 potatoes that we had peeled and diced up, 1 onion, half of the ground beef, 4 cups of beef broth. Okay, that's what I added in there, and my seasonings. You just season it to taste. I used garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, and I think a little bit of steak seasoning or hamburger seasoning. That's what I added to mine. You can add whatever you want to yours. Then we're going to put the lid on this and we're going to turn it on high and let it cook for about 3 hours, okay? At that 3-hour mark, you're going to melt 3 tablespoons of butter, and then you're going to add in 3 tablespoons of flour. We're going to make a little roux, y'all. We're not going to season this up because we're dumping it into the already seasoned soup. And then once it gets added in there, we'll taste it, and if it needs something else, we'll add it. So you're going to let that cook for about 3 to 4 minutes or so, just whisking it pretty constantly. And then once that raw flour has been cooked kind of out of there, we're going to add in, slowly whisk in 1 cup of milk and 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. Now you can use all heavy whipping cream if you choose, half and half. However you want to do it, you can. But for me, I like the taste and the consistency excuse me, of half heavy whipping cream and half milk. So 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, 1 cup of milk. Bring it to a boil. Once it started boiling, you're going to just take it off the heat and we're going to pour it right into our soup. Now, mind you, remember the soup has been cooking in the crock pot on high for about 3 hours, okay? So we're adding in our cream mixture, and then we're going to add some bacon. This is a pack of bacon. I cooked it in the oven. I put it on, I lined my bacon pan with full. I lay my bacon out, put it in a cold oven, turn the oven to 400, set a timer for 25, 30 minutes. Bacon comes out perfect every time. So that's how I do mine. Do yours however you cook your bacon. So I crumbled that bacon all up in there, and then we're going to add in about 2 cups of shredded cheese. I'm using, I think it's a Mexican blend. It's whatever I got at Sam's. But you can use whatever kind of shredded cheese you like. If you just like cheddar or you like a cheddar Colby Jack, whatever. So I mix that up, and then we're going to put the lid back on here, cut it down on low, and let it cook for about another 30 or 45 minutes, okay? And that's it. That's your bacon cheeseburger soup. Now, you can reserve some of your bacon to, you know, sprinkle on top of it if you want to. Sometimes we just sprinkle a little more on there even though we have bacon in it. You can also sprinkle a little bit of cheese on top of this when you heat it back up to eat it. Any way you go, it's stinking delicious. Like I said, my son is kind of a picky eater. He is a grown man, but he, you know, just doesn't like a lot of things, but this is one of his favorites. All right, next up, we're doing taco soup. If you've been with me for any length of time, almost every meal prep has got taco soup in it. I love taco soup. It's one of my favorites. So I added in the other half of that ground beef that we cooked and drained. Then I added in about an onion's worth of that diced onions. And then I added in 1 can of kidney beans. You can use black beans or whatever kind of beans you like. Then I added in 1 can of corn. I drained those cans. I mean, not the tomatoes, but the beans and the corn. Then I added in 1 can of petite diced tomatoes, and I'm adding in 1 can, that's like the 15-ounce can of whatever that is, tomato sauce. I've been talking so long, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. So then for the seasonings, you're just going to add in 1 packet of ranch seasoning and 1 packet of taco seasoning. Or you can do like me and just pour it in there like this. You know, however, y'all know I don't measure nothing. So anyway, I do try to measure for y'all when I can. So about a packet's worth, okay? About a packet's worth. Then I put about 3/4 of a can of water into that tomato sauce just to kind of get the rest of my tomato sauce out and to give this a little bit more liquid. If you don't want the extra liquid, you don't have to add that in there. But I do, I mean, if it's a soup, in my opinion, if I'm going to eat a soup, I like the juice. You know, that's just me. But if you don't have to add it. So then I just put the lid on this and I let it cook on high for about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. You can also cook this on the stove if you want to, but I had a lot of soup to cook, so 2 of my recipes went in the crock pot just to make my life a little easier, okay? So that's it for our taco soup. When I eat this, I always put a little bit of shredded cheese on top of it when I heat it back up. You can also serve this over Fritos, however you want to eat it. It's divine, y'all. Everything is divine, right? It's really, really good, though. So if you need a good taco soup recipe, give that one a try. Okay, next up, we are doing Dolly Parton's Stampede Soup. This is a creamy vegetable soup. So to your pot, you're going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. Once it's melted, add a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Then you're going to mix that up and let that cook for about a minute, maybe 30 seconds or a minute. I was also supposed to add something else, but I forgot, so I'll add it in a minute and I'll tell y'all about it. So then I added in 3 tablespoons of just regular old all-purpose flour. And we're going to whisk that up, and we're going to let that cook for about 3 to 4 minutes just to get that raw flour cooked out of there. Just stir it pretty constantly so you don't burn it, okay? So then we're going to add in 1 cup of chicken broth and 1 cup of water, okay? Just chicken broth and water, okay? I think it actually, the original recipe calls for like 1.5 cups of water and 1/2 cup of chicken broth, but you know, I march to the beat of my own drummer. So this is what I should have added earlier, is just this white corn syrup. but I forgot. I should have added it in with the garlic and onion, but I forgot, so it's fine. I'm adding it in now. I don't really know what the purpose of it is, but this is the original recipe, so, you know, I'll make sure I'm following the rules. Then I added some salt and pepper, and I'm adding 1 can of these mixed vegetables. I got mine at the Dollar General. You can get yours wherever you get your vegetables, okay? And because it's a creamy soup, I don't want big chunks of vegetables in it, so I take my potato masher and I mash those vegetables up a little bit. And just be careful. I'm being careful even though it doesn't look like it, so I don't scrape the sides and the bottom of my pot. So once you bring that to a boil, you're going to add in 1 cup of heavy cream and 1 cup of milk. And again, this is just, I like the combination of the milk and the heavy cream. You can do 2 cups of heavy cream if you want to. I think that might be what the recipe actually originally called for, but it's too much in my opinion for me. It's a little bit too rich when you add 2 cups of the heavy whipping cream. So I just add 1 of heavy whipping cream and 1 of milk. And then you just let it come to a boil again and then cut it down to a simmer and let it simmer for about 10 minutes and it's done. Super, super easy, very fast to cook it, okay? So next up, we're doing French onion. Now this one is definitely a lot more hands-on than the others. It's a labor of love, but if you like French onion soup, it is so worth it. So you're gonna melt down 3 tablespoons of butter and then add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. Be careful, sometimes it'll pop at you. And then I'm gonna add in that entire 3 pounds of sweet onions that we sliced up earlier. See, this was another occasion where we didn't have to stop to slice these onions up. They were already done for us, so we can just I'm snapping, y'all. Just keep on moving. Just keep on moving. So anyway, you're just going to cook these on kind of a medium low. And it took me about an hour and 15 minutes to get them where I wanted. It's a long time. You have to stir it pretty frequently, so you can't really leave them. See how mushy they got? And that was about halfway through. And then this is the color where I was ready to stop, okay? You can cook them as long as you want to, but you're going to have to cook them for a long time, so just know that. But because we're doing this for freezer prep, we've prepped this, and now we can put it in the freezer, and next time we want it, we don't have to go through all this. See? It's a good thing, y'all. It's a good thing. Take 1 day of cooking a lot of stuff to not have to do it later. So once my onions were where I wanted them, I added a little salt and pepper, and I added in about 2 tablespoons of flour, just all-purpose flour, and I let that cook for about 2 or 3 minutes just to get that raw flour cooked out. Now we're going to add in 6 cups of beef broth. Now, a lot of French onion recipes call for red wine. I don't keep red wine at my house. It's not that I don't like it. I do like some red wine, but I don't really have it. So when I did my French onion soup, I wanted a recipe that didn't require it, but you know, you can adjust it to your liking. So I added 6 cups of beef broth, and then we're going to add in a couple of tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, okay? Mix that up real good. I'm telling y'all, this soup is so good. If you like French onion soup, you need to make this. Like I said, it's a labor of love, but it is so worth it. So once we bring it to a boil, we're going to put the lid on it, cut it down to a simmer, and we're just going to let this simmer for about an hour. And that's it. You just made your own French onion soup right there at home, y'all. How exciting is that? So if you were going to cook this right away, you would put it into some sort of an oven-proof ramekin or container, top it with some toasty bread, and then put your cheese over the top. All of that is going to be in the original video recipe. You know, it'll be all there for you, all the oven temperatures and all that kind of stuff. But that's it, y'all. It's super, super simple to make. It's just kind of labor intensive because you have to baby the onions for a while. But other than that, it's really an easy recipe. Okay? So if you want some good French onion soup, get to making it. Get to making it, y'all. Okay, so next up we are doing chicken noodle soup. Now, you know everybody loves some good chicken noodle soup. So to my pot, I'm adding in a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. I let that get hot, and then I'm adding in half of the carrots I cut up, and I'm going to add half the celery and half of the onion that I have left. I'm going to freeze the rest of this because that way, if I just want a pot of chicken noodle soup later on in the wintertime, if this is already gone, then I'll have all the stuff I already ready for me to make it. So, you know, I'm pre-prepping and really, really pre-prepping. So I'm going to use the Golden Girls. Look, stay golden, y'all. To stir these up, and we're going to let these vegetables cook until they're soft, okay? I don't have a time limit for that. Just let them cook till they're as soft as you want them. Then you're going to add in about a tablespoon of minced garlic and let that cook for about 30 seconds. You don't want to scorch that garlic because it's going to taste disgusting if you do, okay? So you don't have to cook it for very long. Then we're going to add in 2 of these 32-ounce containers of chicken broth. And you can see like almost all the chicken broth and beef broth I used today was low sodium. That's just my personal preference because then I can just adjust the seasoning to how I like it. So add your 8 cups of chicken broth is what that comes out to be. And then I added in some garlic powder and some onion powder. And I'm going to use some oregano. If you want, you can use Italian seasoning. I don't like Italian seasoning, so anytime I can, I substitute oregano when a recipe calls for Italian seasoning. And then I added in some salt and pepper, okay? So then we're going to need to add our chicken in. Now, I usually get a big pack of chicken at Sam's or Walmart or whatever, and I will cook it in the crock pot, put the whole pack in the crock pot and let it cook. And then shred it up, and then I freeze it in individual freezer bags so that when I get ready to make something like this, my chicken is already prepped and ready to go. But you could also dice up your chicken and cook it, or use a rotisserie chicken or whatever. So you're going to bring that to a boil, and then you're going to add in about 2 cups. I'm using these Amish egg noodles. I have used like just regular, like the wide egg noodles. Also, you need about 2 cups, and then whatever your package tells you however long to cook them, that's how long you're going to cook it, and that's it. It's super simple. Once your noodles are done, this soup is done. Look how good this looks, y'all. Chicken noodle soup is definitely a crowd favorite, and you know, the winter months, they're going to be here. Don't usually get real cold where I'm at, but occasionally we get a little cold snap. So anyway, now we got plenty of soup. So I just divided this up evenly, trying to make sure everybody got a little juice. Now, if you end up not having enough juice that you like when you get ready to cook this, just add a little bit more chicken broth to it. It'll be fine, y'all. So that is it. We ended up making 40 of these containers of soup. 40, y'all. That is a lot of soup. We have potato soup, vegetable beef soup, chicken noodle soup, taco soup, bacon cheeseburger soup. What else did we make? French onion soup and creamy vegetable soup. And like I said, the vegetable beef soup, that made 11 containers just by itself. So if you're looking to get some stuff in the freezer for the winter, just to make your life a little bit easier, or just to have soup when you want a bowl but you don't feel like cooking a whole pot, spend the day doing this. You won't regret it. All right, that's all I've got for y'all today, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.